We have lots to discuss in today's video, including the latest trade talk around the NHL. JT Miller is still the hot topic around the NHL. The latest intel suggests that if a deal is going to get done for the Canucks to trade the star player, it's almost going to have to be the New York Rangers, where he ends up, barring some other significant changes. Plus, we have some other updates as well regarding the Ottawa Senators, looking at some defense help out of Pittsburgh. Plus, we also have an update on the potential return of Jonathan Toews and how things may look and when that might be. We also got significant injury updates from around the league, including the Boston Bruins, Vegas, Ottawa, Toronto, New Jersey, and a bunch of others. Plus, we have some quarter-century teams named as well, including New Jersey and Detroit. All that, plus a significant update on what next year's salary cap might be as well, and that's coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have lots of NHL news to take a look at, some trade talk as well. We'll get to that here in a few minutes. But first up, let's start with some signings and some injury updates. The first update comes from the Chicago Blackhawks, where they've signed a third-round pick from the 2024 NHL Draft forward AJ Speleby, who gets a 3-year ELC, currently playing for the OHL Windsor Spitfire. So he's obviously had a pretty good draft plus 1 year and has earned himself his contract now to be officially part of the Blackhawks organization. Several injury updates, some notable ones here as well. One, the Boston Bruins are going to be without Jeremy Swayman. It doesn't mean it's going to be super long, though. We don't really know the full extent of it. They have called up Michael DiPietro on an emergency basis for tonight's game against the Ottawa Senators. They're at home tonight against the Sens, and Swayman is not available. Well, so last night they had a game against the Devils. They're on a back-to-back here. Swayman started, was pulled after the second period. They were down, I think, 4-1 at that point. So many people thought it was more so because of the team just needing a boost and things not going well. Sometimes you try a goalie change and obviously let in 4 goals. Not like Swayman was having a great night, but the team is now saying that it was because primarily that he was dealing with a minor upper body injury. So Korpisalo is expected to play tonight, and DiPietro will be backing up. So they're calling it a minor injury. Maybe he won't miss a whole lot of time, but he's missing at least tonight's game. We'll see if it ends up being any longer or not. With their opponent, the Ottawa Senators, some things on their roster has been changing. David Perron makes his much awaited return tonight. He hasn't played since, I believe it was November. He's been on LTIR. He's missed a ton of times. He only appeared in 9 games this year, but he will be back in the lineup tonight. To make him be able to be activated, they had to take Linus Ullmark and move him to long-term injured reserve. But for Sens fans out there, don't worry or get panicky that Ullmark's going to be out super long, further than what he's already been, because he's already missed enough time to be eligible to be activated from LTIR. So to be in that category, you have to miss 10 games or 24 days, and he's already done both of that. So he can be activated tomorrow if need be. It's just a salary cap gymnastics now for Ullmark to come back off of LTIR, assuming that no other player ends up moving to that. And right now, we don't really know that there would be. They're going to have to find a way to clear off $1.9 million in salary cap space, which is going to be tricky to do. They do have a couple of forwards, or actually a couple of young, between I think Highmore or Sabrango, I believe, are still technically on the roster. They wouldn't be quite clear enough, though. That's going to get them close, but not quite all the way there. So they're going to have to do some cap gymnastics here when Ullmark's ready to play. I suspect he might be able to go this weekend. They do have a back-to-back at home with no travel. We'll see on that front. Josh Norris is out tonight as well in the last game. I didn't quite see what happened. I know he ended up with a big gash on his chin. He missed part of the period, came back, looked to be in good spirits, was smiling and laughing with his teammates. Then the intermission goes by, and he doesn't come back out. And then they said he was being held out for precautionary reasons. Now they're saying he's going to miss a couple of games. So we don't really know the full extent of that. I don't know if he was later showing signs of a concussion or something. We'll have to wait and see where things go on that front. Vegas is labeling William Karlsson week to week as well. He's now become questionable at best for the Four Nation tournament coming up. Islanders defenseman Noah Dobson, they've updated his status after what looked like a pretty bad leg injury. He's considered week to week as well. The Maple Leafs today, they've sent Dennis Hildeby down to the minors, and they've recalled Matt Murray. Hildeby didn't have a great game against the Jackets last night, and he hadn't played today. detriment here. It's good in a way to be up to the NHL club. He's not getting a lot of playing time, so he hasn't seen a lot of action. And you can tell he could probably need that. So they're sending him down where he can hopefully play more. Murray has actually done really well in the AHL. His last stint at the NHL kind of went okay, but not great. So they're hoping that maybe he can give them a couple of good games as they're still awaiting the return of Anthony Stolarz. Matthew Nyes also was injured in last night's game, but it's believed to not be overly serious and that he will be out. They're calling it days, not weeks, so it's more of a day-to-day thing and shouldn't miss more than a game or two depending on their exact schedule here. New Jersey, though, also saw a significant injury last night. They were playing the Boston Bruins, as I mentioned. Jacob Markstrom ended up leaving that game. Jake Allen had to come in relief. Justin Brazeau of the Bruins was driving hard to the net and ended up crashing into him. You could see one of his, I believe it would be his left leg. It was kind of going hard into the post. So we don't know the full extent of the injury. They're referring to him as just missing some time. That's all they've kind of said so far. But again, considering how close we are to the Four Nation tournament, he was likely going to be the starting goaltender. That's certainly up in question right now with Linus Ullmark still working his way back. Is he going to play? Sweden thought they were going to have a lot of great goaltenders on their roster, and suddenly a bunch of question marks. Same with William Karlsson. So we'll see how things go on that front. So lots of injury updates, to say the least. We got a couple more quarter century teams. One came out last evening, which I didn't catch in time before last night's video. One was out today. So the first one out last night was the Devils. So their quarter century team is named by the NHL as follows. Team 1, for the forwards, we've got Patrick Elias, Zach Parise, and Jack Hughes. So, of course, Hughes the only current member of the roster and organization to be on this team. Scott Niedermayer and Scott Stevens in the back end. That's quite the duo there. And then, of course, Marty Brodeur between the pipes. Team 2, Scotty Gomez, Travis Zajac, and Jamie Langenbrunner is your trio of forwards, followed by former captain Andy Green in the back end with Brian Rafalski as his D partner. And then, of course, Corey Schneider, who was a longtime goaltender there with the organization as well. So pretty solid group there. Team 1, I think, definitely has the edge for sure. The Detroit Red Wings quarter century team, as I mentioned, also named, and they're going to see a common denominator here between the Red Wings and the Devils. The quarter century team number 1, Pavel Datsyuk. General manager Steve Yzerman right now is on that team, so he's there along with Henrik Zetterberg. So Zetterberg and Datsyuk and Yzerman is your trio of forwards. On the back end, you get Nicholas Kronwall, Nicholas Lidstrom, and Chris Osgood. That's a pretty darn good team, if you ask me. Team number 2 for the Red Wings quarter-century team is current captain Dylan Larkin, current Maple Leaf president Brendan Shanahan, and Sergei Fedorov is your forward trio. On the back end, you've got Chris Chelios and Brian Rafalski. So Rafalski obviously played a lot with Detroit and New Jersey both and had a major impact on both franchises, enough so to get on both quarter-century teams. It's not going to be a common thing here that you're going to see a lot of players appearing on multiple ones. So good on him. He certainly had a really solid run in both organizations. And Dominic Hasek is your goaltender for Team 2. So pretty darn good teams there from Detroit when they were on their massive streak of making the playoffs every year. Lots of good players, lots of great teams for sure. Now, lots of other news around the league today, and starting with the salary cap, we got word from Elliot Friedman's 32 Thoughts written blog today, plus updates from Alan Walsh, a very prominent hockey agent who actually Elliot referenced in his blog as well, but Walsh on one of his latest podcast episodes, Agent Provocateur, talked about this too. And according to Walsh, he says that you can pretty well bank on the fact that the salary cap is going to go up more than the allotted 5% increase. So, of course, we know it's at $88 million right now. The expectation is going to be around 92 next year. There was a lot of talk that it could be more. He's saying it's going to be 97. That's a significant increase. And as Elliot's been saying, we may get a little bit more clarity on where the cap will be 2 and possibly 3 years out, with there being, well over $100 million by in the third year from now. So if we go to 97 next year, that's a significant increase. There's a lot of teams that are going to be tough up against it, and these announcements should be coming in a not too distant future. Obviously, teams need time to prepare and plan ahead. Their belief is that, we could have an announcement maybe around the Four Nation Face-Off tournament or definitely before the trade deadline. So the trade deadline to me is getting a little late. Teams want it sooner than that because there's especially a lot of pending unrestricted free agents that they're trying to decide if they can sign or not. And knowing next year's cap would go a long way in helping them make that decision and negotiate these contracts. So that would be a significant increase in the salary cap, one that we haven't really seen really in the cap era of that big of a jump in 1 year. So imagine we go to 97, then we could be talking about maybe like 102 and like 107 or something like that, maybe in 3 years. It's pretty crazy when you think about it. So that's great news that the game is doing well. The revenues are up. And that if they have the cap figured out, 2 to 3 years down the road, Elliott says that he believes even though that the salary or the CBA doesn't extend that long, that they can do a memorandum of understanding to kind of extend that. And that should really be a big help in helping them iron out details to get a new CBA done, which, like I said, like they're hoping to have sorted out. If all goes well, it's hard to say, but we've had really good labor peace and good negotiations. If things progress well, by the summertime, they could have, before the Stanley Cup final, an announcement on an extension on the CBA as well, which would be phenomenal to make sure that there's no disruptions at all within that. And of course, another quick update on the Ottawa Senators, and we're going to jump into a quick Sens trade rumor afterwards. An update on their new arena with LeBreton Flats in downtown Ottawa. Things are not progressing very, very quickly with the NCC, of course, who is the government agency that looks after this land. They have been really dragging their feet. Of course, they have an agreement in principle, but the next steps is that they have to agree with the Senators as the buyers on the fair market value of the land and the cost that the land is going to need, like the cost to remediate the land to get it ready to build. Apparently the land needs a lot of work to get to that point, a lot of cleanup, and that's going to be costly. So, they're negotiating and trying to figure out what this value is. And the NCC had an update today, and the only update was from them that they're hopeful and optimistic to have a deal with the Senators by the end of the year. It's January. If we have to go a whole other calendar year before we even have an agreement to get to the next step, that's really going to delay things. I know Michael Anlauer, the owner of the Senators, definitely was frustrated the last time he spoke on TSN a couple of weeks back, saying he was hoping that the NCC wouldn't change the rules or, that they could kind of move forward. You could tell that he's getting rid of or getting frustrated with the political holdups here. Obviously, the other big thing that could impact things as well is that we know that the Canadian government, those of you who follow politics or, if you're in Canada and know what's going on, we don't really have a government right now. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has recently resigned, but he's resigned. His resignation is pending the Liberal Party getting a new leader. So the expectation is that we could very well have a spring election. And whenever the election does come, these are all political appointed, spots that deal with the NCC and everything. And, who's to say that those people are still going to be around? It could be a significant delay in anything moving forward because they have to wait for new people to be appointed. And it's a mess. It's a complete mess. And, those who live in Ottawa say that the NCC's we really shouldn't be surprised because this has been the way they've been trying to develop this land for a long, long time and have gotten nowhere. So clearly at some point I have to wonder what it's going to take for Michael Anlauer to start really being more seriously looking at other spots. You have to think that eventually frustration will boil over. So we'll see. Now on the Sens trade front, there is details from Dave Pagnotta for fourthbeer.com indicating that he has reason to believe that the Senators are inquiring on the trade market about adding some defensive help on the back end and links the Senators to pending UFA defenseman Marcus Pettersson of the Pittsburgh Penguins. Now, of course, they could definitely use some defensive help. Right now, the problem more than anything is that they have some forward injuries and their ability to score on a consistent basis has been tough. Like, we saw them get shut out by the Rangers 5-0 in their last game. But of course, when they played Boston last week, they put up like 5 goals. It was 5-5 going into overtime. So, they have their games when they explode and they have their games where it's like 2-1, 1-0, and they've been shut out a few times. Like, they really could use some of their top players to snap out of their cold streaks. And, well, to do that, maybe an extra boost in the forward group could go a long way, because they haven't really been fully healthy in that group for a little while here either. So, obviously, to some degree, Pettersson makes sense. I don't think the asking price would be super high. It's believed probably a second or third round pick. And like I said, he's a pending UFA, so you don't have to be committed to him for a long time. If they have any additional injuries, which right now they do, they have Hamonic and Bernard Docker both on the right side. So, makes sense that they're looking for some help, but Nicholas Matinpalo, who was a European free agent who they signed last year, who had been playing in Belleville, actually done a pretty nice job and has done well with the Sens so far. So I'm not sure they're in a super big rush here, but at some point they probably would like to add some more depth to that position. Now, another name we want to talk about here as well is Jonathan Toews. There's been some rumors about his return to the NHL. We talked yesterday about the I guess you could say the desire or the interest from Jets GM Kevin Cheveldayoff, who made it known that he'd love to have a chance to speak to him and that they would be very interested at possibly bringing him in. Of course, the former Stanley Cup champion, former Blackhawks captain, the former, Team Canada international hero who had played a lot internationally during his career, but between the World Juniors and Olympics prior, would love to have that option to bring the hometown guy home to Winnipeg. But the belief is now, Pierre LeBrun was talking on Insider Trading today, he doesn't think that Jonathan Toews is intending on wanting to play this year. So for right now, Winnipeg's trade position is probably like we had heard before, that if they want a number 2, number 3 center that they want to add to their lineup, they probably are going to have to do that via trade. That Jonathan Toews acquisition, if he comes as a signing, would possibly be for next year. Now, we don't know for sure he would go to Winnipeg, but the belief from Pierre LeBrun was that there is mutual interest, that Toews would have a lot of interest in going home to Winnipeg. But at the same time, he said that his agent, Pat Brisson, has received a lot of inquiries from a lot of other teams. So, definitely interested in Winnipeg, but he's also looking at other options too, and probably won't make a decision until we get to free agency. So we'll see where things go, and he might return to the NHL next year. Now, lastly, in Vancouver, the JT Miller saga has been the main contention around the NHL. Where's JT Miller going? When's the trade's going to happen? It's believed at this point it's not if, but when. But an update today from Patrick Johnson, who covers the Canucks for the Province outlet, was talking about how JT Miller pretty much has to go to the New York Rangers. It's believed that it's Rangers or bust at this point, unless another team jumps in here in the mix that we haven't seen coming. Dallas could be that team, but he believes that the interest from Carolina, who's getting a lot of attention from national media members, being right in the mix, he says that he doesn't think that the Canes' interest is really all that high. I think it's more, interested, yes, but not to the point of the Rangers, not anywhere close. So, Chris Drury, we know, is looking to shake up this team, wants to kind of change the identity. They have played better as of late, but it's never too late to make your team better in the NHL and see if you can get into a playoff spot. The Rangers are slowly starting to fight their way back in, and if they keep playing the way they have been, they will certainly have better odds than they were some time ago. But the belief here that another big holdup around the JT Miller trade as well is that a team like the Rangers wants, in order to them to take the contract on in full without retention, they want a sweetener involved. Now, the sweetener could be that Vancouver retained salary. However, considering the term on the contract and the amount of money we're talking about, it's pretty unlikely that we're going to see the Vancouver want to do that, especially going into next year. Their cap hit on the Oliver Ekman-Larsson buyout jumps, and it's over $4 million, and it's not the only dead cap money that they have. So you look at their dead cap money situation, they don't need to add a bunch more to it by retaining on JT Miller. So they definitely want the Rangers or whoever he goes to take on the full contract. Like I said, the Rangers are playing hardball here, and they're like, we'll gladly take the player, but if we're taking we want a sweetener, basically, because they feel they're making it look like they're doing the Canucks a favor, kind of unloading that drama situation that they've been dealing with in their locker room. And well, is that going to work out is the thing, right? I mean, the belief was that it was some sort of deal involving Philip Hedl and a first-round pick or something along those lines was believed to be the trade offer from the Rangers. But now, they either want the Canucks to retain, which they're probably not going to do, or they're going to add another sweetener like a prospect. So that appears to be a big part of the holdup here. So is Vancouver going to want to give up a decent prospect to move JT Miller? It feels like, teams that are in the mix here, like the Rangers, are almost holding them hostage to say, you want to do it? That's what it's going to take. So that certainly is a situation that they probably didn't anticipate, given that JT Miller's a solid player, pretty good contract overall, but it makes you wonder how other teams around the NHL, other executives really value that contract, because I know some people thought, myself included, when he signed it, that it should be a pretty good deal. And for the most part, it had been up until this season where his production has dipped and all this drama has come forth here to the front of the storylines, instead of talking more about how the Canucks are, winning games and, trending towards being a playoff team for the second year in a row. Things have really taken a turn in Vancouver, and not for the better. But it sure seems like if the Canucks are going to get a JT Miller trade done, it's almost Rangers or bust, and they have to add a sweetener of some kind to make this go through. That is definitely the hold up right now. So let me know your thoughts on all of today's news and rumors down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, of course, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching. I'll catch you next time.